Hello, Yates County and beyond. Welcome back to another episode of Invasive Species Friday. Through this short weekly podcast, we at the Yates CCE hope to bring you information about the invasive species you may see around this county. We are blooming with this week's invasive, Wisteria. Though the Asian wisterias are not widespread in Yates County, they are present, available to purchase online, and deceptively pretty. They're often used as ornamentals, but can grow very aggressively. The two species we're discussing today are the Chinese Wisteria sinensis and the Japanese Wisteria floribunda. Both are woody, climby vines in the legume or pea family and are often misidentified as each other as they're very similar plants. The two species have even hybridized into a third invasive, Wisteria formosa. Some genetic studies indicate that, at least in the southeast US, over 80% of naturalized wisteria are actually the hybrid variety. Chinese wisteria was introduced in the US in 1916 as an ornamental. It's now found extensively throughout the eastern US, from Massachusetts to Illinois and down to Texas. It's considered an invasive in at least 19 states. Japanese wisteria was introduced even earlier, in 1830, and is now found from New York to Florida and west to, again, Texas. Both prefer full sun, but once established can survive in partial shade. They prefer deep, loamy, well-drained soil, but like many other invasives, can tolerate a variety of soils and moistures. As I said, they're very similar plants, but when examined closely, have some distinct differences. The stems of the Chinese wisteria are stout and smooth. They appear grayish-brown and are covered in fine white hairs. Japanese wisteria vines are slender and brown. Densely hairy when the plant is young, they become hairless as they age. The stems of both species can grow up to 15 inches in diameter if they get old enough. The entire wisteria plant can grow over 65 feet long, depending on the height of the plant or structure it's climbing. Chinese wisteria climbs by twining counterclockwise around its host, while the Japanese wisteria twines clockwise. Both species have alternate compound leaves. Their leaflets are egg-shaped with wavy margins and a very tapered tip. Where they differ is the leaf length and the number of leaflets. Japanese wisteria has 13 to 17 leaflets per leaf and can reach 8 to 12 inches long. Chinese wisteria only grows 6 to 10 inches long and has 9 to 11 leaflets per leaf. Both types flower around April, producing pendulous racemes, or hanging clusters of flowers attached to a stalk by a small stem called a pedicle. The Japanese blooms are violet to violet blue and open sequentially from the base to the tip of the cluster. The individual flowers are just over half an inch tall, but the entire cluster can be 1 to 3 feet long. The Chinese clusters usually max out at 6 to 12 inches, but the lavender to purple flowers are just under an inch and open simultaneously. The flowers of both give way to long, velvety seed pods in the summer that persist on the vine for quite a while. The pods are 4 to 7 inches long, with the Japanese variety typically on the longer end, but the pods of both are broader at the tip and narrower at the base. Each pod contains round, flat seeds. Chinese wisteria produces 1 to 3 per pod, while the Japanese pods contain 3 to 6. Though the seeds can move great distances by water, they don't often make it far from the parent plant because they're too large and heavy for birds. Wisteria seeds are poisonous, so can be dangerous to curious pets. Wisteria can also reproduce vegetatively. The stolons, or above-ground stems, can periodically produce shoots and roots. Anywhere the nodes touch the ground can become a new plant, and when damaged, wisteria sends out more shoots. This is how the plant spreads so aggressively. When growing from seed, it can take wisteria up to 20 years to mature, but once established, it can survive for 5 decades or more. As I mentioned, wisteria uses other plants, especially trees or man-made structures, to climb to collect as much sunlight as possible. Infestations can actually grow so densely that the plants they climb can't get enough sunlight and start to fail. Additionally, the vines can actually girdle or cut through the bark and disrupt the nutrients of the tree and other plants as it winds its way up. When the unfortunate tree dies and falls, it opens up the canopy, allowing in more light and stimulating the wisteria to grow more vigorously. The new vines sprouting on the ground will shade out or smother the native vegetation below the canopy as well. This disrupts the natural forest succession and opens the way for more invasive species to enter the area. So let's talk about how we can keep this invasive from becoming widespread in Yates County. There are currently some wild patches spreading through the county, but most of the occurrences are in gardens. As Japanese and Chinese wisteria are not yet regulated in New York, it's still possible to buy them online and in some nurseries and plant stores. If you really feel the need to have a wisteria, look for American or Kentucky wisteria, which is native. It's a bit more of a shrubby vine and much less aggressive, but the drooping blooms come in a variety of colors. Reach out to your local extension office or master gardeners for advice on alternatives to the invasive wisterias. Finally, if you spot a patch of this week's invasive in the wild, please report it to IMAP Invasives. We need your help to track the spread of these and other invasives around the county. And with that, we reach the end of this week's episode of Invasive Species Friday. Next Friday, we'll be looking at an irritating and smelly insect. Until then, we at the Yates CCE thank you for tuning in and supporting our fight against invasive species in Yates County.